Roxy. I would love to do a fun icebreaker and get to know everybody here, but I want to be conscious of time. So I'll just keep it to some information, if that sounds good, and maybe like a little engaging activity at the end. But yeah, I am a camp counselor and outreach ambassador for a nonprofit organization, national nonprofit called Brave Trails. We serve queer and trans youth, particularly through many different resources, but what we specialize in is queer and trans summer camp for youth. It's a leadership-based summer camp, and I can't wait to tell you more about it. But we exist because of a necessity. Especially for queer and trans youth, safe spaces are life-saving, as it shows to be, and I'll go into a little bit of detail on that. But other than working for Brave Trails, I've been working in the mental health industry as a crisis advocate over the phone for a domestic violence 24/7 line, as well as Trans Lifeline, if you're familiar with Trans Lifeline. And on the weekends, I'm a wedding DJ. So if any of you are getting married anytime soon, call your girl up. I can give you a little LGBT discount. And yeah, I'll go like this, down. Perfect. I would give you a little intro icebreaker. It's okay. I would give you a little intro icebreaker, but I'll be conscious of the time. I was going to play queer trivia with you, but I'm sure all of you know that Ellen DeGeneres came out to which celebrity on her show, Ellen? The unofficial icon Laura Dern is who that. All of you knew that, so I don't even need to waste my time. So while I'm a fun and fruity camp counselor and I love to play games and giggle, camp also teaches us how to have difficult conversations and how to take care of ourselves during these difficult conversations. And so I'm going to dive into things regarding mental health in our community. So talking about like the political climate a little bit, things surrounding depression, anxiety, suicide. If any of this feels charged for any of you, please do what you have to do to remain at ease, whether that's taking a step out for a moment, stepping away from your computer. I really want you to take care of yourself. And if at any point you prefer I switch gears, we can go from that too. I don't have to, just because I have something on paper doesn't mean we need to talk about it. Does that feel good for everybody?
Yeah.
Great. So as we're well aware, the political landscape right now has been increasingly precarious, particularly for queer and trans youth, right? Just in the last couple months, every day brings a new horror for the constitutional rights of trans folks. We continue to see attacks on our constitutional rights, attacks coming from state legislature, from local governments, from school boards. And specifically with schools, you know, and trans youth, we're seeing bathroom bans, sport exclusions, and just at risk right now of losing it. And I mention this not as the focus of today, but rather as another factor that we're to keep in mind when talking about queer and trans mental health. And just here with this fact here, I'm keeping my eyes peeled on a lot of survey data that Trevor Project does. Every year they do a national survey of young people and their mental health. In 2020, almost every respondent said that the political climate is negatively affecting their well-being. And in fact, last year, a different study that they did, the Trevor Project, over 61,000 transgender and gender nonconforming youth responded to the survey, showing for the first time actually a causal relationship between an increase in state-level anti-trans legislature and an increase in suicide attempts among trans and non-binary youth. So yeah, again, while this isn't the focus, I just wanted to let you know, like, these things don't just happen in a bubble, right? This is the wider context surrounding our vulnerable youth, and everything else that they experience in their lives exists with this pretense that our society and our government says that we don't belong and sometimes don't even exist. I want to talk a little bit more, since, you know, I got a degree in this, about the kind of the current body of research, but I won't bore you with all of it. I promise I'm a fun, engaging camp counselor and I want to do fun stuff after this. But you also came for some information. So there's many, many different factors at play for in research of what impacts mental health challenges. But I specifically want to talk about the public health crisis of transgender and gender nonconforming suicide in our country. While I was, you know, I mentioned I did research for Trans Lifeline in undergrad. Throughout every article with similar rates of attempt, and that's going to be around 40% of all trans people, youth, adults, every trans person at some point in their lifetime. That is a staggering statistic, especially compared to the general population. If that's the first time you've heard the statistic before, take a second, let that sink in, because that's 2 out of every 5 people, right? And the more I look into things now, that's consistent today, if not more. Things that the field recognizes that are risk factors, are major risk factors that are that contribute to this. I'll spare you all of those because it's a lot of like really long words, but it can be wrapped up in by saying the medicine to combat this, scientifically proven, is pride, community connectedness, and a sense of belonging. And my question to us is, how can that be fostered, right? How can we, with everything in mind, in all of these different systems that we live in, whether it's our government, society, families, schools, how can we foster that and create the space for us? And I think if we bring it back a little bit to the Trevor Project national survey data, it can kind of contextualize things a little bit. So in their 2024 survey, when asked, or through analyzing the data, they found that queer and trans people across the line have a lower risk of attempting suicide if they have access to affirming spaces. Specifically for trans people, they have access to affirming clothing, gender-neutral bathrooms, and their pronouns are respected. You would think this is like basic, right? But it's actually really not as easy to come by. And I can't wait to talk to you about camp because we have all of these things, right? So yeah, just a little bit more on the theory side of things. I think continuing on with the 2024 Trevor Project national data, when we talk about affirming spaces, this thing that we've recognized, we're primarily talking about quarantine world. It's predominantly virtual spaces, right? In the survey, when the trans and non-binary participants are asked if they have access to affirming spaces and community, the biggest answer, the most prevalent answer was yes, I do, it's online. The second biggest answer was, yes, I do it at school, and you can see the other ones, but obviously online is where we're at. This is where our community is gathering. I mean, hey, shout out to everybody on Zoom right now. Like, there's lots of reasons why people engage online, and safety is a huge part of it. Also, when LGBTQ plus young people are asked if they have access to queer and trans role models, predominantly they say, yes, I do. It's somebody I follow on social media. And then next up is, yes, I do. It's my friend, but at a dramatically lower percentage. A lot of our queer and trans youth, the only role models that they've ever experienced or older queer and trans people are people that they follow on social media or they heard about on the news, things like that. And yeah, I think while the internet is a life-saving tool in so many ways, I think our queer community has a lot to thank the internet for. We're almost seeing like an over-reliance on it, right? Community building and friendship making, you can try and replicate it in many ways virtually, but there's lots of things we're also missing in that way. And I think it's kind of precarious for childhood development, skill building, and an authentic sense of belonging. We all like know that the misuse of smartphones and internet and social media are bad for our brains, so I like won't waste your time talking about that. But I bring it up as yet another circumstance that weighs on the well-being of our queer and trans youth. Digital spaces alone can't replicate real-world opportunities for leadership, social connection, conflict resolution, skills that are like crucial for queer and trans youth to build for a lifetime of resilience. So yeah, kind of the background, that's kind of what brings us here today, right? And so for people in person, this says imagine. I've just spent a lot of time talking about queer and trans youth at large. I want to zoom in and talk about one specific LGBTQ plus kiddo with a little visualization activity, if you're interested, with all that in mind. So if you'd like, I invite you to close your eyes for this part. Maybe take a couple deep breaths. For you to imagine yourself as a queer trans child. Maybe that's you. Maybe there's a youngster in your life that's already coming to mind. Feel free to visualize them. Maybe you don't have to know this kiddo. We can imagine them together. Maybe you're 14 years old. Maybe you've recently come out as non-binary. Perhaps you go to a relatively small school that doesn't have a GSA or very many queer kids, and maybe you've tried to make friends with the other few gay kids by joining theater, but you're finding that's not your cup of tea. You find that the only peers that really understand what you're going through are across the country, who you met through a gaming or internet server. Your parents are supportive. They pay for a video chat therapist for you, but while the therapist is super nice and knowledgeable, you never truly open up to her because she's older and straight. You're thankful your parents love you and support you, but they can only do so much when it comes to community connections. They try to bring you to one of their coworkers' dinner parties since they have a lesbian daughter your mom wants you to be friends with, but she's 16 and pretty and popular, so you just rather be on your phone messaging Discord friends. Your parents want you to be happy, but since you can't help but feel disconnect and isolation, you start to feel like you're a burden to them. Then one day, your internet best friend tells you that they'll be traveling to an LGBT summer camp in California this year. Ooh. I invite you to open your eyes. That camp is called Rave Trails. You look them up on TikTok and see all these kids who look like you with huge smiles. You see a video of them making their own manga comics, something that you were made fun of for liking in school. We'll just keep it on this. Something you're made fun of for liking in school. You also see a clip of them learning American Sign Language. No way, you just learned how to sign your name since you want to be friends with your deaf out of your comfort zone and apply to camp with the help of your parents. Why not? You're accepted and you even qualify for financial aid. Summer rolls around and you're excited to meet your online friends at camp, but you're really nervous because you've never been to sleepaway camp before and you have never gone a week without your cell phone and whatever. Your parents drop you off at camp and you're enthusiastically greeted by a gaggle of gay and trans staff. You realize that other than your late gay uncle, you haven't really met any queer trans adults. Now they're everywhere. You still feel a little shy and awkward, but for the first time, it's not because you're the odd queer out. In fact, it's now sinking in that everyone at this camp is just like you. You already have something in common with everyone here. Since every part of camp is unisex and inclusive, cabins are split up by age instead of gender. You are led to the cabin with the other 14-year-olds, the orange cabin. You're disappointed because your internet friend who told you about camp is 15, so bunk together. But your cabin counselors are so happy that you're here, and they introduce you to the other cabin mates who are already playing cards and gossiping about Demon Slayer, your favorite anime. You can't believe they're talking about Demon Slayer, and you immediately drop your guard and feel yourself. At dinner, you will pick which build-on program that you'll be a part of every day at camp. You're given the options of drag, music production, photography, craftivism, and zine making. Obviously, you choose zine making because you think you'll have the perfect excuse to show off your new comic book idea. You also sign up for a one-off free choice activity tomorrow. None of those choices seem up your alley, so you end up choosing archery. The next day, your homesickness you woke up with quickly subsides after morning flagpole, where campers raise the pansexual flag high into the air. You've never seen a pan flag in the wind and feel so recognized. You get excited because you hear a rumor that there may be a gender fluid flag tomorrow. After you have an amazing time at your zine build-on, you are pleasantly surprised with how much you enjoyed archery. You didn't think you'd like this sport, but you love feeling just like Link in The Legend of Zelda. You're happy you pushed yourself to try something new and can't wait to do it again. After lunch, you go to Passion to Action, a program where you build your leadership skills with a group of other campers, researching a social justice cause you care about and finding tangible ways to impact that cause. You and your group choose disability justice in schools because that's a cause you feel passionate about since you've seen how kids have bullied your deaf classmates. Evening comes around and you realize you forgot to tell your anime club that you won't have your phone for a week, and you start worrying that they think that you're blowing them off. You start hyperventilating and an anxiety attack sets in. Thankfully, your cabin counselor takes notice, takes you and one of the mental health therapists on site outside to do some grounding exercises. Once you start feeling better, you realize the therapist with you is a trans man. You've never had an LGBTQ plus caregiver before and feel seen and supported by him. This whole week flies by and it's already time to say so long to the dozens of campers you made and the role models who supported you along the way. You get the phone numbers of all your new friends and even live close to a few of them. You can't wait to see them again at camp reunion in the winter and next summer at camp because you're definitely going again. While this isn't a story of a particular child, it's the story of real campers, experiences from countless campers that I've met through Brave Trails. Here, our programs are meant to introduce LGBTQ plus youth to what they deserve most, which is their people, their place, and their passion. I've seen it so many times where they come to camp super nervous and insecure, and maybe not knowing anybody and having all of these things that they're focused on, leave with a whole new community, new leadership skills. The passions that they came to camp with are nurtured, and now they have the ability to push themselves out of their comfort zone a little bit, to try new things and challenge themselves. And that's kind of all by design. Um, if I want to save time for question and answers, so I do have this really cute video, but instead maybe I'll play like 3 minutes of it at the end if we have time. Does that sound good, Frank? A little bit more about camp. We've been around for 11 years now. This will be our 11th summer. And while we've been in California for 10 summers, in Southern California and in New York for a bit now, this upcoming summer, we're still in the same places, but we added a camp in the greater Atlanta area. So that's really exciting. Other really, really cool things from last year, this is from 2024. Um, this year, we have even more for the secure grants that we've gotten and donations to lock in on this financial support. We really want to make sure that socioeconomic backgrounds is not a barrier for anyone to come to camp. And if camp is ever something that interests you or anyone you know, please reach out because we have the funds right now. Other programs that we offer, we have a backpacking trip in the summer for teens up to age 19. We go on a part of the Pacific Crest Trail. We have a family camp for any type of family. I have family camp folks who are queer parents of cute kiddos, and then I have families who are queer trans kiddos with straight parents. Just a family full of allies. Like, I love to see it. That happens in the winter. It's just for one weekend. Mom, we gotta go. My mom's here. And we have queer therapy that we offer virtually for youth in California. It's one-on-one with queer and trans identified therapists. And then we also have support groups online for youth as well as their caregivers. There's a separate group for their caregivers. And then we have Brave Spaces as well, which are one-off events that we throw from Brave Trails, just ways to get the community back together when camp isn't happening, either through like fun going roller skating or having a picnic. So keep an eye out on our website for more of that. Speaking of, I am hosting a space in collaboration with PFLAG Los Angeles. On May 10th, we are doing a fun collab where PFLAG will lead an adult support circle in one room, while in the other room, I'm hanging out with all the kids. I'm doing camp activities. We are having a ball, doing arts and crafts and other non-physical activities because it's inside. And then afterwards, we all come together for a little advocacy party where we write letters to either like a queer ancestor or a supportive teacher in your life, or to a politician you want to get a word out to. So yeah, come on through. Feel free to scan this for more information.